evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Lanre Lasese. Now in Nigeria, industrial actions have become an all too familiar part of national life. From education to healthcare, strikes have repeatedly disrupted essential services, affecting institutions, businesses, and most importantly, ordinary Nigerians. Now, just a few weeks ago, the National Association of Resident Doctors threatened to embark on industrial action over a number of unresolved issues. Thankfully, the proposed strike was suspended, with the doctors giving the government until the 31st of August to address their concerns. But what exactly are the issues this time? Why are the doctors prepared to down their tools? And with the deadline fast approaching, will the suspension hold, or could Nigeria once again be facing an industrial action capable of putting further pressure on an already challenged health care system? Now, to discuss these and other related issues with us is the National President of the National Association of Resident Doctors, Dr. Muhammad Suleiman. President, I would like to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for having me.
And I would like us to go straight. There's so many issues to handle, and because the issue is one that touches everybody. Anytime people in the medical sector or unions in the medical sector say something about strike, everybody gets very jittery. So I would like us to go at this from our understanding of what are the core issues that have brought around another threat of a strike.
Thank you for having me. It's unfortunate that we're here. It's unfortunate that issues have degenerated to this level. Main core issues have to do with welfare of healthcare workers and in particular resident doctors. One is the 19-month professional allowance table. Another one is delay and arrears of salaries of house officers. Another is the assault on doctors and other healthcare workers. I always like emphasizing the issue of this assault because people just get away with it. If you don't take a hard stand, it becomes an issue. We have local chapter issues, especially in Luth. We're thankful and grateful to God that we have seen the end of that with call mills and some people not being allowed to go for exams, but alhamdulillah, we've been able to get over all of that. We have salary and promotion areas across more than 50 centers across the federation. Salary areas from way back 5-10 years ago. Promotion areas from way back 5-10 years ago. Some individuals having 1, 2, 3 months. Some individuals having as high as 22, 23, 24 months. And I like making this point. You can't show me any elected representative we have today in Nigeria that has a 24 months or 20 months or even 10 months arrears. It's not possible. It is absolutely not possible. You can't show me anybody within the high-ranking echelons of civil service that has that. You know, there are several other issues like the collective bargaining agreement. It's very, very important because the last time salaries were reviewed in the health sector was in 2012 or 2013. That's 12, 13, 14 years ago. It was the last time salaries were reviewed. This professional allowance table that we've been talking about is an injustice that stemmed from 7 years ago. We thank the federal government for implementing it, releasing a circular late last year and implementing it this February. They couldn't pay all the arrears, but they've tagged that 19 months. And discussions have led us to where we are today. There are several other issues, mostly are local, subnational, but then specifically state tertiary health institutions. I understand it's not within the purview of the federal government, based on our constitution, to direct state governments on what to do, but we want to retain the services of not just resident doctors, but healthcare service providers, which means state governments have to step up. Quite a number of them have stepped up. I mean, Osun State, Rivers State, Bayelsa State, Kaduna State, Plateau State, Benue State, quite a number of them are stepping up. You know, we would like more of them to step up and see how some of these challenges that we are having at those states can be handled. Then, of course, there's the facility issues and all of that. So we could take 1 hour, 2 hours just talking about what the issues are.
Yes. I think one thing I would want to just ask is that, okay, so these issues are the ones that are responsible for the current strike position that you've taken. But I can't help but keep hearing 10 years, 7 years. That means these are not fresh issues. And I now wonder, why have this not been addressed? Because we had strikes. We've had strikes almost covering this time.
So this is the crux of the matter. And I'm happy, if you look at my address to the media, immediately I came out of our discussions with the Chief of Staff to the President, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, who we hold in high regard. And to the latter of the case, he has lived up to his word from the day we made those agreements till date. This is the problem, this is the bane of the profession in Nigeria. Agreements are entered to with government and then people just go to sleep because it has shelved the current action. And I like to step a bit away from the call for the industrial action and say a few facts that are clear for those that want to see. The current ministers of health, the coordinating minister, Professor Muhammad Ali Pati, and the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Isiaq Adekunle Salako, I think they have done quite well in that there are several agreements that they inherited when they became ministers that I can tell you in the last 1 year, 12 months, 18 months, they have done their best to make sure none of it still remains in the Federal Ministry of Health. What do I mean by that? There is no outstanding agreement that we have with the federal government that is still being held back by the Federal Ministry of Health, which means they have done their homework. And I have the receipts to show for it. They've been able to get 25-35% cleared. We're just trying to get the last batch paid by the end of this month, as we agreed with the Chief of Staff. They've been able to get accoutrement allowance cleared. They've been able to get this circular released for this professional allowance table. They've been able to write for the 19 months arrears to be paid. It's no longer under them. They've done their own due diligence. They've been able to get a circular release on assault on health workers. It is now left for those individual hospitals and the security apparatus and our legal system to take care of those assailants that are there. Now, there's another issue, work hour, excess workload, and locum engagements. For the first time in the history of this country, we have a national policy that caps what work should be in the health sector, that defines what excess workload is, and makes provision for reward for that excess work being done. For the first time, we have a national policy in the health sector that talks about locum engagements. I know there are clinical duty allowances for our seniors consultants that have been there. I know there are COVID-19 allowances backlog all the way from 2019-2020 that this Ministry of Health, under these fine gentlemen, have been able to clear off their desk. There are other issues that are still on their desk. For instance, our certificate issue, the MDCN recategorization of our membership certificate. But I mean, when you had 19 issues and now you're just talking about one still within the Ministry of Health, you have to give them credit. Yeah. That does not mean that where there are issues, we will not call it out. So for instance, Mr. President of the country, a few weeks ago, made a call to our colleagues in the diaspora to come back to Nigeria. Yes. While that call, very presidential as it is, very realistic as it is, very acknowledging of the fact that we have a challenge of manpower as it is, you must also consider that against the backdrop that he has a Ministry of Health under him that is now clearing agreements from the past 10, 12, 7, 5-year agreements. They are clearing it. What point am I trying to make? There are 3 outstanding issues today that if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and these 2 fine gentlemen heading the Ministry of Health can sort out, I can guarantee you that that reversal he is looking for will now gain serious consideration. And what are these 3 issues? You see this collective bargaining agreement. If the federal government today will sort it out, and no doctor, no health worker is asking for implementation today. Everybody is asking for the CBA to be finalized, concluded, so that circulars can go to the budget office, so that the budget office can make provision in 2027 budget.
Give me a little background to that collective bargaining agreement.
So collective,
when was that?
So last year, the president gave the go-ahead, the SGF authorized, and the ministers of health and labor convoked the collective bargaining, where the Nigerian Medical Association, JOHESU, and the Nigerian Association of National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, three big major unions within the health sector, met with the federal government to sit down and talk about welfare and remuneration related challenges, because it is only through the CBA that you can actually negotiate salaries. Okay. All these things you're hearing about professional allowance table, they are allowances that have already been agreed upon. The implementation was failed. It's why we are still talking about them. Okay. We're not talking about new salaries. It is that CBA platform that does that. So last year we were told it will finish in 3 months. It didn't. This is more than a year later. This is to address the salaries you say were fixed in 2000. Yes, you know, inflation has come, exchange rate. I mean, it's the last time.
And that means you wouldn't get affected by the minimum wage, whatever.
So the minimum wage goes to touch basic salary across board. Yes. The last minimum wage, something funny happened. There was across the board 40,000 naira that was added to everybody's salary, and it was called minimum wage. Really, it isn't, you know. And even at that, the last collective bargaining we had with the federal government said, if you touch our basic salary, it should also reflect on our allowances. It kept, all the minimum wages kept touching the basic salary, never touched any allowance. And the last time any adjustment touched our allowances was in 2019. And in that 2019, it touched it to the point that we were earning like 40-45% of our actual allowances. Okay. And then this year, this government was able to correct that anomaly, and now we're earning the remaining 55% of our earned allowances that we had lost for 7 years.
I stopped your flow. You were on the CBA.
Yes. So for that CBA, we need it. It's where government will look at what we want and then what they can
like
offer.
A bargaining table.
Like a bargaining. It's a collective bargaining, and we agree.
Yes.
And we also agree for periodic reviews, and we agree on implementations.
But since last year, it hasn't been completed.
We've had several engagements at the level of NMA, JOHESU, NAM, and then the federal government, inclusive of Ministry of Health and Ministry of Labor, and even Finance, Head of Service, Accountant General, all the works. And right now, we're waiting, because all the unions have given government their demands. We're waiting on the government side to sort themselves out and say, this is what government can offer. And then we sit down and look at it. Are we accepting, or we need to renegotiate? And once we cross that hurdle, it is for the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission to circularize. And then take those circulars to the budget office for them to do what they normally do in the budget, to see that next year's budget captures it. I am telling you, because that is the initial thought I was talking about. So that's
your first point to the president.
If Mr. President can get the CBA done and the circulars released and those things imputed in 2027 budget, he has restored a lot of confidence. The second thing is, you see this 19 months arrears. Someone has an arrears of 7 years. And without talking to the person, you said, I will be able to sort out from July or June 2024. And the person says, no problem. That's where the 18-19 months came into play. And the person says, no problem, sort it out. I think it's a mark of honor. It's a mark that you value that person for you to clear it. Now, I'm happy to announce to you that the service-wide vote of the 2026 budget captures that money. The budget office has said so quite clearly, even before the chief of staff. And we understand liquidity challenges within government, revenue issues and all of that. But you can give out these monies in 2-3 tranches, you know, and the money is not, as Hausa people will say, betaka karaya kariyaba, with respect to the whole quantum of the federal government. You know,
you need to translate that.
it has not matched any stick and broken it.
Okay.
Now, if the federal government is able to sort out the collective bargaining, is able to sort out these 19 months arrears, I mean, the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, under the guidance of these two fine gentlemen I keep referring to in the Ministry of Health, would have succeeded in solving an age-long, a perennial problem within the health sector. Anything that will come ahead of that is an addition to perfect a system, and then you will have a very motivated workforce. Let me give you an instance. This work hour, excess workload, and locum engagement policy that just came out, I have received thousands of messages. Mr. President, if the government can implement this, not President, if government can, I will go into residency training. I'll come back to the country to engage in residency training.
From those outside?
Yes, because it takes care of problems. It makes, for instance, as a senior resident in pulmonology, in internal medicine, I don't know in a week how many hours I give to regular work, but I know every 2-3 days I'm on call. In a month, I'll probably be on call for about 2-3 extra weekends. That means in a week, I will give an average of 100 hours, 106. A surgeon in training will give 122 to 126 hours every week. And if you extrapolate that to a whole month, there are subspecialties that people give as high as 500, 600, 700 hours in a month. What that means is that you are perennially in the hospital. You come by 8, by 4 you start call, 8 the next day you are still in the hospital, 4 the next day you still continue with a call and all that. It's not tenable. People have died from this. People get exhausted. Then you have a 7-year arrears. You have 5 years promotion arrears. You have, your salary is still reflecting what was being paid in 2012. So life becomes very challenging.
So what does the new, what's the new circular saying now? What's the circular?
So the excess workload national policy now is saying we are capping, based on this, your work schedule for the week to 48 hours. We're also saying you will not take more than 2 calls in a week. You will not take more than 1 weekend call in a month. That
has been sent out?
It's circularized.
So, you're confident it will be implemented?
The stakeholders that are to implement it were part of the committee, so I'm 100% confident it will be implemented.
Okay, I want you to break down some of these demands, and so let me quickly take you on. I think one thing that has featured very prominently, like you mentioned as you were talking, is this issue of assault on.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, how prevalent is this? Because between me and you, I know I've visited hospitals. I've never come across a situation where I would see or be chance to observe medical personnel being harassed. But it appears from where you are talking, it appears it's something that happens.
In the last 11 months that I have been NAT president,
yes,
I have documented as a president currently now, because after the last time I briefed the media, 2 more cases happened. So that makes it 33 cases. Where in those 33 cases, 33 resident doctors were assaulted. In those 33 cases that resident doctors were assaulted, I think over 20 nurses, over 20 other healthcare workers like health attendants were also included in the assault. Different centers across the country. And it's not just federal institutions, it's federal and state institutions. Of these 33 cases, I'm aware the recent ones, with more media presence, it's now becoming a national conversation, so everybody is proactive about it. The recent ones have gotten to a point where the assailants have been apprehended and then have been charged to court. Okay. But the earlier ones, probably up until case 24, 25, perhaps maybe 2 or 3 out of those have gotten to a point where these assailants were charged to court. And I'm happy, 3 things have actually happened on the issue of the assault. I'm happy with it. The NATNEC is happy with it. One is the Federal Ministry of Health has released guidance directing chief executives across federal health institutions to take action. That guidance is quite satisfactory if it will be adhered to by those chief executives to the latter. Secondly, the Chief of Staff has given us his word that they will look at legislative action to make it an aggravated offense to attack healthcare workers. Number 3, the security apparatus comprising of the police and the DSS have assured us that they want to form state response units so that leaders of hospitals, leaders of healthcare institutions across those institutions can have direct access, for real-time intervention by these security agencies.
So there are desks that know that this is their own.
Exactly. So these 3 things, in fact, even this morning I saw one of our local chapters updating us of visiting the DSS. And having these conversations, which means the national here has sent out signals, and at the local chapters across the federation, actions are being taken. We hope it will translate to material things, especially that legislation, and we hope the chief executives will live up to the directive by the Federal Ministry of Health on this issue of assault.
Are you satisfied?
Well, I've not started seeing the results yet. Perhaps it's too early to watch out for results. But it's not until someone is beaten to death that we begin to implement these things. And I'm using this opportunity to call out to chief executives in hospitals and the security apparatus and even healthcare workers to be vigilant. Make sure preventive measures as directed by the Federal Ministry of Health are in place. And then when these actions happen, make sure that you get in contact with the appropriate security apparatus so that these people are apprehended. Sometimes these people are not apprehended because it's either one big man in town or one big politician's relation or somebody related to a high-ranking officer within that institution, and they begin to hide and ask for out-of-court settlements. You know, all of those things encourage escalation. You know, I will wait to see the next 2-3 months before I say whether I am okay with what is happening. But I think those are the things that we requested for, and they are there. Okay.
I would like to also take up this issue. I found it very interesting, the issue of meals.
Yes.
That was also part of the demand. I think the way it was stated is, how did they put it? Where do I have that there? Yes, meals for call duty doctors.
Yes. So when a doctor is on call, before now, that the call duty is not defined by a national policy, you are expected to be at your duty post for the entire duration. So if it's a weekend call, you come on Saturday 8 a.m., you are not to leave until either Sunday 8 a.m. or Monday 8 a.m. in the morning. You're not expected to leave your duty post. Now, 30, 40, 50 years ago, some wise men thought it that, if you want to keep, this is a human being, so you need to give him a call room where he can sleep, where he can perform basic human functions, take care of himself. You also need to give him something to put to get energy, which is the call meal. That is how it started.
Which helps. He doesn't leave the premises to go and look for them.
Now, before I continue talking about the call meal, consider this. That resident doctor is the one that will consult the patient. There's consultation fee that hospital generates. He will send investigations, take the samples, give it to the patients or his relations to go to lab. They generate revenue there. And these investigations are very plenty. Blood work, urine work, x-rays, CT scans, very sophisticated investigations, which generates revenue for that hospital. He will document, admit. There's an admission fee. He will document for this procedure. Those procedures can either be there or in a procedure room or even in the theater. It generates revenue. So the resident doctor has, from time immemorial, very clear, has been the primary revenue driver for any health institution. I mean, what does it take to give that person that will raise that much revenue per call? For instance, I have once had a call where I admitted 40 patients. I have gone through that. Averagely in my department, 2018-17, I've had a busy call that I've admitted 40 patients. You can imagine one senior registrar admitting 40 patients. You can imagine how much revenue. So to give that senior registrar 1 mil, we're now speaking long grammar. There's no circular from the federal government. There's no circular that I should raise that revenue, but I'm raising it. You know, but more importantly, it's not about the revenue. Resident doctors contribute to improving morbidity and improving mortality. Outcome of healthcare decisions taken depend on these resident doctors. We are the frontline heroes in the fight against morbidity and mortality in this country. So there's a lot of value being brought on. So when we started having centers, you know, we thank God the CMD of Ife, a senior colleague, a one-time leader in this same association, has done the needful. And we're also grateful to the Chief of Staff and to the CMD of Lagos University Hospital that they have seen the need also to intervene and solve. From 1st September, it is our expectation that meal tickets will resume in Luth. And we have also sent out to our leaders in every other center where these call meals have stopped. I'm hearing UCH Ibadan. Some 7-8 months ago, they decided to stop it too. I don't know why. I think they're discussing with their local chapter. It has not become national yet. You know, there's this argument that why is this becoming national? It's becoming national because it just takes one case for the CMD to say, I will not give, and for government to say, don't give, and then it escalates everywhere. That's why it's national. I mean, we're here for the welfare of our people.
We'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back. So welcome back from that short break.
Thank you.
I had to, because of the break,
Yes.
stop you. You were on 3 points.
Yes.
Could you please
yes, so
continue?
point number one is the salary arrears.
Yes.
There are quite a number of centers that have salary arrears. Why are they arrears? Simply, they have worked for those months, they didn't get the salary for those months, and it has crossed over to another budget year. There's no legal budget document covering that, so it has to go through the budget office. That's why it's a salary arrears.
Okay.
On the day we were meeting him, we received the good news that batch 7 has been funded, batch 9 has also been funded. Now we can confirm, and the monies have been provided for. We were assured payment will happen in 1 week. We're still waiting for that payment. You can see, like I mentioned earlier, it is not a Federal Ministry of Health problem. It is not a Femi Gbajabiamila problem. With all due respect, there are other departments. A few days ago, we heard the remitter platform was down, So that's for salary arrears. For promotion arrears, unfortunately, quite a number of centers, instead of submitting their arrears to the budget office, which is the right legal thing to do, they submitted either to the Ministry of Health or to the Accountant General, who are not empowered by law to take care of it. So now a lot of them will have to do a rerouting back to the budget office. And we're happy that the budget office has made it very clear that batch 10 is available to take care of that, as instructed by the Right Honorable Chief of Staff. And what we're hoping is those that have been captured, we were assured they will be paid within a week. This is 2 weeks later. Okay. And that's why the neck of NAD was smart and said, let's give it time till 31st of August. The last one is 35%. We've been following this, the last batch to be paid, for several months. Although we agreed in the meeting with the Chief of Staff that it will come by the end of August. End of August is next week. So hopefully, those that are responsible for it will hear me now, appeal to them that pay it before the end of next week, so that the neck of NAD, when it meets on the 31st of August, will have reasons to believe that government has lived up to its own side of the bargain.
Okay, let me also now understand from you, because I do know that while you represent all resident doctors, not all resident doctors work in federal institutions.
Yes.
There's some that work in state institutions.
Yes.
I would like to understand the relationship. How, because it appears majority of what you talked about right now are federal issues. How are the states performing?
Well, let me start by appreciating quite a number of state governors. And as I talk, and I remember more.
You had appreciated some. You called some
the Plateau State Governor, the Benue State Governor, the Kaduna State Governor, although in Kaduna, some funny games are starting to happen. I'm sure Mr. Governor will nip it in the bud, so that as agreed this August, things that need to reflect will reflect. Okay. But the agreements have actually been made. River State, Osun State, in fact, Senator Ademola Adeleke, I have to give him kudos. Although people thought I was joking, I have asked for employment in Osun State. That is how well he treats his resident doctors. I have asked that when I hand over as NAP president, I want to be a resident
and apply.
Bayelsa State is doing well. Lagos State just had agreements, and implementation will take place this August. Ogun State did also very well. In fact, we're writing a commendation letter to the governor of Ogun State. He did quite a number of things. He's finalizing orders this month, so we're waiting to see the payroll for August in Ogun State.
So you have a better deal?
Yes.
Or better responses in some states?
In some states. And Kwara State has paid, MRTF has employed quite a number of doctors. The appeal is for other state governors to come on board, apply and implement this professional allowance table. Take, for instance, in Anambra State, the governor just a few weeks ago paid the medical residency training fund for all his doctors, and also implemented this professional allowance table fully, completely, to everybody. I know the kind of messages I get of excitement from residents in Kauth, in Oka. That's a state institution. Enugu State has been doing pretty well. There are a few challenges, but I think the governor is on top of the situation. Ebonyi State was even the governor that opened up this doorway that state governors can actually impact the lives of resident doctors who work for state institutions. Now, let me tell you, doctors, resident doctors that work, any health worker that works for a state institution is a hero in this country. A lot of these state institutions have different degree and categories of issues. They're not as powerful as the federal government. And The health sector is not where a governor will invest billions of naira and then you'll be able to point to the electorate that this is what I have done. A lot of it is capital intensive, a lot of it is human resource management. So not all leaders look at it as plausible political decision, you know, but the reality is those that have invested have seen the output, they've seen the difference, and it is speaking for them. And I hope that these governors that have been doing well, whenever they call on resident doctors in their states, those resident doctors will also be there for them. But I want to use this opportunity to call on the rest of the state governors. It is not too hard, especially when you hear Mr. President at the federal level saying how when he came on board, 27 states could not pay salary. Now they can pay salaries, which means they have room to make these adjustments. And join Mr. President in calling people to come back from diaspora. You want people to come back from diaspora? At least do what the federal government is doing. Implement these agreements. When we finish with these agreements, we finish with the arrears, we finish with the CBA. You have now come to status quo. Then we begin the conversation of how do we attract people coming back. So the same call, the same appeal, the same understanding we're showing to the federal government is the same appeal, understanding, and call we're making to the state governors, which is why August 31st is kind of like a last bus stop. Let us shake body so that August 31st does not catch us unaware.
Well, President, I have to be frank with you. There are people who wonder, and I'm sure a lot of state governors will also wonder, there's some of them trying their best to put things in place. But yet, when there's a national call for a strike, like you're saying, like we're looking at now, we have the 31st of August.
I'm going to catch heat for this, but let me just, I understand where you're going. I'm going to catch heat for this, but let me just say it. You know, as the NAT president, I know the state governors that are doing very well. Ask those state governors if they had service when we had national actions. Don't allow me to say more.
Okay, I'll leave it at that.
I know I'll catch it for this, but that is just the reality.
Enough is said. Now, you know, one of the things I think I always like whenever we talk is to get an understanding of what the health of our health sector is. How well is our sector doing? And I have to be frank with you. I looked through your communique when you met in Gombe. I think that was in July.
Yes.
And I'm taking a quote from there. You said, the NEC observed concern the deplorable state of infrastructure in many public health institutions across the country, including inadequate medical equipment, poor maintenance of facilities, erratic power supply, and other infrastructural deficiencies that continue to compromise quality healthcare delivery, medical training, and patient safety.
If you take power, for instance, some of the legacy centers, legacy federal hospitals in Nigeria, will tell you they pay in excess of 150 million naira per year just on per month, just on power. I mean, this power is generated by Nigeria. This hospital is owned by Nigeria. The people patronizing these hospitals are Nigerians. And you give a manager the responsibility of paying back the same government that built these structures, the same government that is offering these services. You are telling him to pay back that same government through different means, 150 million naira every month. How do you expect him to
Not run? The government. The companies are now private.
Yes, I know. Yes. But I mean,
you are saying that it still looks like it's still back.
Yes. So what this translates to is an emergency comes. It is an appendix, and Suleiman can remove an appendix, and then they tell you there is no light. The patient is there. Perhaps for the next 4 or 5 hours, time is ticking. Perhaps the appendix that is just something you go in and remove now is ruptured. Now converts an appendectomy to an exploratory laparotomy. You know, you have to open the entire abdomen, to do quite a lot. A mini major surgery becomes a mega major surgery, increasing morbidity and mortality. I know hospitals where people during calls and shifts will have to use their phone as touchlight because they can't just bear to look at patients in agony, you know. And when we talk about structural decays, this is what we mean. Is the government trying? it's best to uplift. I just saw a few days ago some approvals from the president directly on some infrastructure intervention in National Hospital, Abuja.
Yes.
I mean, I was so happy with that. When I looked at the timelines and what were given for what was approved for, I mean, I was like, this is where we need to go. And if we can replicate that across the entire country, makes a whole lot of sense. If you go to Lagos University Hospital, where we were talking about the Right Honorable Chief of Staff to the President when he was Speaker, and now some of the interventions that the federal government has taken to Luth, if you can extend that to other hospitals.
But your position now is that across the country?
No, in a greater majority of the hospitals across the country, there are those challenges. Quite a number of them are brand new. I mean, the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, late President Muhammadu Buhari, established these centers. These centers are struggling with manpower challenge, are struggling with facility challenge, yet they are being, our people are going there in their droves because all they see is a hospital.
But
and then
the necessity, what makes it a hospital?
We need to upscale on that. However, there are a few things that I think are going in the right direction. For instance, the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund that takes care of some primary healthcare needs. In fact, we've seen, and I agree with the Federal Ministry of Health, an uptick, in fact, a very significant uptick of consultations. In some quarters, from 10 million to 40 million consultations across primary and secondary healthcare facilities across the country because of the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund. There's this program that the Federal Ministry of Health has brought for free cesarean section. Although it adds more strain to us resident doctors, but of course it does, because you must stay back and do extra work that you're not being paid for.
But extra work that will be addressed now.
Of course.
So things are
balancing out. You know, so that's a good one. The emergency ambulance services, you know, if we could, the Ministry of Health brought that on board, and I think a lot of states have keyed in. You know, it's an area that is very, very empty in this country, emergency ambulance services. And I think if we can continue with that, it's a good one. I think the National Blood Transfusion Services has also scaled up some of its...
But can I just ask you, the interplay between because, you know, there's federal, there's state, there's local government, there's other... The interplay, how well are we getting it in the health sector?
Well, I work in a federal tertiary facility.
Yes.
But I get reports from state institutions. I think at the level of policymakers, the interplay has been quite well. Has been going on fine. At level of policymakers. At level of execution, you now have to look at things like healthcare coverage, like vaccination coverage, you know, and all of that. You have to look at that. Are we improving there? I think we've done significantly well in the last couple of years. Because
the next point I want to bring up talks to this. The communique also notes that NEC observed the concern, the persistently poor healthcare coverage and limited access to quality healthcare services for many in Nigeria, driven by inadequate health financing, critical shortage of healthcare personnel, inadequate distribution of health resources, and the increasing burden of out-of-pocket healthcare expenditure on citizens. This one catches me. Because between me and you, we have the National Health Insurance Authority that is, from what I understand,
the
NHIA supposed to be doing more.
Yes.
The last count, anytime I ask, it seems almost every state now has its own sort of insurance scheme. Yet, here is NEC saying that they have a problem and they look at the issue of increasing burden of out-of-pocket healthcare expenditure.
So let me tell you my own experience to why NEC made that statement.
Please.
So I use NHIA as a federal civil servant in my hospital. And I've become immune to certain things. If NHIA is going to give me drugs, whether me or my family, anyone that is under my coverage, I usually go out of my way to buy my drugs elsewhere because of the quality of the drugs available. That is me. I would use investigations because investigations are within my hospital and these are quality investigations. When it comes to drugs that NHIA gives, I would now rather take money from my pocket and go out and buy.
Do your own search.
Every chief executive will tell you he has this challenge with NHIA. I mean, we can throw all the statistics, we can throw all the books at it, and this is my experience. And I don't work in a federal hospital separate from the rest of NEC. They equally have families. They equally try to access this care. They see this. Now, healthcare service across the entire globe is expensive. It's not cheap. And in Nigeria, a greater burden of healthcare expenditure is out of pocket. And we have billions and billions of naira, if not dollars, domiciled in NHIA. Am I an expert in health insurance? I am not. But the layman that I am is seeing a whole lot of challenges that frankly we just don't want to solve. It is why people still spend more out of pocket. It is why those that matter, those that have means, prefer to go private, prefer to leave the shores of this country. I mean, even last week, a patient called and said, "Doctor, can you give me a referral letter to Egypt?" I mean, are they really doing that much better than us?
But in terms of quality?
In terms of quality. My challenge...
You can be guaranteed that the system puts checks in place.
I have reservations about that statement. And it's as a clinician, I can tell you one of two things is happening. It's either we have challenges in remittances. So people offer services, they don't get pays that are due for those services, and then they scale down to balance books. Or somebody is just finding a way to just circumvent the system and keep the money somewhere. That is just the truth. I see no reason why, as buoyant and as robust as NHIA is, that Rocephin, which is a common antibiotic, becomes a challenge when you have Rocephin indicated for a patient. You know, you have to go and buy it yourself, rather than NHIA providing it. But, you know, that's a whole lot of conversation. It is some of the input that NEC looked at and said, no, we must improve coverage. We must improve the efficiency of NHIA, and we must reduce out-of-pocket expenditure. If you don't reduce, people are still going to spend so much. The Federal Ministry of Health has this statistic that more than 70% of healthcare consultations happen outside of government hospitals. Yes. It is true, which means more than 70% of healthcare coverage in this country happens outside NHIA, which means coverage in NHIA is still abysmally low.
I want to take you quickly on another issue. As medical personnel, you people depend largely on tests to concretize your diagnosis. But it seems sometimes we get challenges with the results of the tests. I
agree with you. I'm a clinician, so I work every day, and I see some very funny EUCRs and full blood counts and microscopies and all that.
I spoke to a guest the other day on borehole testing, and he mentioned how there are labs who already have tests written out, because you coming in to do the test don't know what it is.
Oh, wow.
And it was shocking.
Interesting.
And I know for a fact that there are hospitals that will tell you, don't go, this is the lab you should go to, because they feel this is the lab.
For me, I have never seen or heard of in a federal tertiary hospital the results are written
No, that was an example. The point I'm coming to now is the issue of quality control and the fact that you can have confidence that...
It's a challenging issue across board. So you want to run EUCR. You have auto-analyzers who depend on power. You want to do a brain CT scan. The machine needs to be on for a couple of hours for you to be able to run it, which means it must be running on its own independent power. A while ago, I just told you a lot of these CMDs are hemorrhaging money just to sustain power. That alone is a challenge. Then there is the chain of delivery of some of these things. We order all these things from outside the country. We don't manufacture them here. You know, so that value chain, that supply chain has its own challenges. So are we guaranteed that we're getting the best of results? I know quite a number of these hospitals, and the Federal Ministry of Health has given guidance on this, have quality control committees and personnel and training and assurances and reassurances. But from time to time, there are gaps and there are lapses. I think there are mostly things that are surmountable. Until we start producing our own here in the country or nearby in the continent, until we start doing that, we may not have total control on some of these outcomes. What happens in the private sector is entirely up to the private sector. I may not be able to comment on that.
And then the other outside one, diagnostic centers that
exactly. There are ethical, moral, and even I dare say legal challenges with some of those roadside places that do all those investigations. And there's no way to oversight them to a reasonable degree because the way health is in Nigeria. It's something that federal government cannot oversight for states, which means state has to deploy a lot of resources, to be able to monitor all these things. Are we getting there? I don't think so. Are we making some giant progress? There was a bill a few weeks ago at the National Assembly to look at how the government can provide a tool for governments across Nigeria to be able to monitor all of this. But the challenge with that bill is that it ended up taking the responsibilities of regulatory bodies, government agencies, lumping it into one, and then kind of like making the federal government direct the state. That even the Ministry of Justice looked at it and said it is unconstitutional. It is illegal for this to continue. We are hoping that a bill like that will have a second eye look at it. A bill like that should not even come as a private bill. I mean, it can come from the government itself. The government knows its mechanisms, knows this challenge, and we see how we'll be able to move ahead on it.
I just need a short answer to this. So because I think for everybody is the issue of strike.
Yes.
31st, looking down, can you give us a forecast, short forecast, what it looks like so far?
I'm about to hand over as a president. If there's one thing I'm afraid of now, is going against the neck.
Okay.
The neck is a lion. And I know how much I've been sitting on the back of this lion. 31st is a make or mar moment, I must confess. If we're able to sort out the 19 months part areas, we're able to sort out the promotion and salary areas, pay them, that's what I mean by sort out. We're able to do so 25-35%. We're able to put a finality to the supplementary list for the MRTF. These policies that were released, implementation looks very, very clear. There's a pathway to it. Perhaps, I think NEC will look at it and say, no, government lived up to what they said. But imagine I get there on the 31st and salary areas has not landed, promotion areas has not landed, 25-35% has not landed, the supplementary list for MRTF has not landed. I mean, I will not be able to tell the NEC anything.
Government has this time.
And I'm clear about it. It is not the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
They've done their due diligence. So it is at the point of payment.
So it's for government to put pressure on where they need to put pressure. They've done some. They should do the rest.
Exactly.
Doctor, we'll be counting down the days and hoping we'll get good news.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure being with you.
Now, let me take the comment of a viewer who wrote in following our interview with a medical geologist. He wrote, I wish boreholes were regulated in Nigeria through licensing that ensures all testing and standardization procedures are followed. I live in an African country where this is done, and even private boreholes are licensed for commercialization to partner with government in providing water for homes. This way, water becomes accessible to all, and people can choose between government dam water or borehole water supplied by licensed individuals, complete with meters and piping into homes. End of quote. A very thoughtful observation there. I'd also like to hear your own view on our discussion tonight. You can share your thoughts with us through our social media handles and the email address on the screen. And don't forget, you can catch up on past episodes of Newsnight. Simply search Newsnight on Channels TV YouTube page. Click on the playlist, select what interests you, and sit back and enjoy. Well, that's our program for tonight. Thank you for staying with us. Until next time, I'm Lanre Lasisi. Have a good evening.